Today I'm going to present on the web server. In this slide I'm mainly going to explain on the overview of web server, the role of web server, the workings of web server, and some of the packages, daemons, ports, protocols involved in the web server. And I will also explain on important configuration options and parameters. And at the last I will explain some of the important error codes for the solution. Now to go on with the overview of web server. Actually, what is web server? Web server is a computer where the web content is stored. Basically, web server is used to host the websites, but there exists other web servers also, such as gaming, storage, FTP, email, etc. Actually, website is a collection of web pages, while web server is a software that responds to the request for web resources. Web servers are used to serve web pages requested by client computers. Clients typically request and view web pages using web browsers applications such as Firefox, Opera, Google Chrome, or Mozilla. Based on a survey by Netcraft in July 2018, what he found that Apache is used mostly in the market, that is up to 45.9%, which is almost 46% comparing to other like Google, Microsoft, this. So what we conclude from the above table is that Apache is the mostly used web server on the Linux systems. What is Apache then? Apache is an open source and free web server software, and its official name is Apache HTTP server, and it is maintained and developed by the Apache Software Foundation. Apache web servers are often used in combination with the MySQL database engine, the hypertext preprocessor, PHP, that is a scripting language, and other popular scripting languages such as Python and Perl. Now the roles of web server. The primary function of our web server is to store, process, and deliver web pages to the clients. Whenever the client requests for the web pages, this web server will process and deliver the web pages to the clients. This web server play a significant role in web hosting services as they perform the key elements. Now the following are some of the functions performed by the web servers. Now what web server does is that it will stores and secures website data. Whatever is in the website, the data that is in the website is secured and it is stored with high security by the web server, and this web server will also provide web database access to the clients. Clients gain access to the database on the web server, and this web server also serves as the end user request. Now the working of web server. Web server responds to the client request in either of the following two ways. Web server will trust these two functions to the client request, as it will sending the file to the client associated with the requested URL, sending the file to the client associated with the requested URL, and it will generating the response by invoking a script and communicating with the database. Now whatever request that the web server gets from the end user, the client, then it will give the response to the end user or client by invoking a scripting and communicating with the database. Now to explain this diagram, whenever this web client, the end user, look for the web pages on the web server, it will request with the HTTP request. Then this web server will look into the static data store for the web pages that is requested by the web client, and this web server will respond the search that he has found in the static data store to the web client with the HTTP response. In case these web pages that is requested by the web client does not found on the static data store, then web server will respond with the error code, error messages. And if web client asks or requests for the sources, other sources, then this web server will again look into this, look or contact with the application server and the application data store. Then it will look for every resources that is asked or requested by the web client, and it will respond to the web client with the HTTP response. Now the packages, daemons, ports and protocols involved in the web server. One of the packages is that Apache HTTP web server. You can install this Apache HTTP web server package provided from the official repositories or the local yum repositories using the command yum install -y httpt. By using this, we can install the Apache HTTP web server package. And this HTTPD is actually a daemon. This hypertext transfer protocol daemon is a software program that runs in the background of our web server and waits for the incoming server requests. The daemon answers the request automatically and serves the hypertext and multimedia documents over the internet using HTTP. Any server machines makes its services available to the internet using numbered ports, one for each service that is available on the server. For web server, the port used are port 80 for HTTP and port number 443 for HTTPS. Web server uses mainly these two ports, port number 80 and port number 443. The most common protocol used to transfer web pages is the hypertext transfer protocol, that is HTTP, commonly known as HTTP. Protocols such as hypertext transfer protocol over secret sockets layer, HTTPS, and file transfer protocol, these are also supported for the reason that to upload and downloading files. For this reason, this HTTPS and FTP are also supported. Now the configuration options and parameters. Some of the configuration options, parameters we should know while configuring. Option T, this option T, server root. What it does is that it will set the initial value of the server root directive to the server root. This can be overridden by the server root directive in the configuration file. And the option fconfig, it uses the directives in the file config on startup. If config does not begin with /, then it is taken to be a path relative to the server root. Now another one is option K, used to start, restart or stop. Now -t or option T parameter. It sets the configuration parameter which can be used with if defined section in the configuration files to conditionally skip or process commands at the server startup and restart. Option E file, what it does is that it will send the error messages during server startup to file. And the option H, it will output a short summary of available command lines. Option L, to list, output a list of modules compiled into the server. It will. And option M, managed to dump a list of loaded static and shared modules. And option B, small letter, it will print the version of HTTPD and then it will exit. And this capital option X, it will run the HTTPD in the debug mode. And finally option Y, it will authorize potentially descriptive action for which the program would normally require confirmation. Now the error codes or troubleshooting points. The arrow is starting with number 1 and dash dash, like 100, 101. These are all informational. Whatever the request we have sent, we are requesting, it will be informing us that the request is received. The request is continuing in the process. It will inform the end user's client. And the number starting with 2200 or 200 something, it meaning whatever number start with 2 meaning success. The action was successfully received, understood and accepted. Now the number starting with 3 and remaining 2 digit can be 00001. What it means that it is redirection. Further action must be taken in order to complete the request. Now if we get such errors, then we have to again do the actions in order to complete the request. We have to again do the sum of the incomplete actions in order to complete the request. And this number starting with 4 ##, 4 can be 400, 400, 401. This means that client error. This error is related to the client. The request contains bad syntax or cannot be fulfilled. Maybe the client or the end users must have defined the syntax wrong syntax, or the requirement of the syntax is not been fulfilled. So in order to solve such problems, the client have to give the correct syntax or have to give the condition in such a way that it must fulfilled. And the final, this error 5xx, meaning the starting number can be 5, then remaining can be 00, 001 and etc. It means that it is the server error. Whatever number error message with the number starting with 5, it means server error. The server failed to fulfill an apparently valid request. The request sent by the user or the clients must not be fulfilled by the server. Maybe the server failure, maybe due to the server failure, or maybe the data that is requesting by the end user or the client is not in the server data store.